You're in the show.
Okay, we
Everyone
are
can.
live. Okay.
Is it on your Facebook, girl?
It should be.
I'm trying to.
Okay, we're
Oh,
on.
yay,
We're
it works,
on.
it works. Yay!
Okay. All right, so we finally got this to work. We've been doing it for the last hour and a half.
I know, right? We
So,
did it!
oh my gosh, but I am so happy we got this to
Oh,
work.
goodness me.
Okay. All right, so I'm gonna keep my phone up here, just to in case we do have any. Let's see, and we won't be able to see. I don't think we can see the comments all at once, but then if you guys comment on it, we'll just have to check each one like every few minutes or something. So, this was a very last minute, just kind of spontaneous live that Kalia and I decided to do. We thought that, in the midst of all this coronavirus thing happening and quarantine, we want to get an opportunity to talk about our dance experience, and our history goes back so many years. I don't even want to say how many years, just because it's going to make me feel old. But yeah, that's why we are here. So please come and join our chat. We would love to talk to everyone and hear everyone else's stories as well. So
Yeah.
first and foremost, Kalia, why don't you introduce yourself?
My name is Kalia Ye. I have been a dancer since the late night since 1999, and I co-choreographed and I was a lead dancer for I don't even know I don't remember how many years I was. Yes, but yeah, I've had about well, if you include till now, about 2 decades of dance experience.
Okay. All right. So with when we started dancing up until now, just kind of give a brief history of your dance experience, where you were from 1999 up until today, and what your career is currently.
Yeah. Oh, girl, I just want to point out that I'm the live comments. We can't see it on the StreamYard, but I
Mm-hmm.
opened a different tab for Facebook where I'm on your Facebook profile, so I can
Okay.
see comments and stuff. So that's all I'm doing.
Okay.
So if we want to see comments, then we just have to. I would just keep myself on the Facebook page.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah. Uh huh.
All
Yeah,
right.
because
Sounds good.
our current movements right now don't really matter. Yeah, it's just
Okay.
about the comments. So that's what I'm
Okay.
doing. Yeah, open a
Okay.
different tab. So I think a little bit of history about, I guess, or about my dance experience was I remember back in '99 was the very first time that I performed for dancing, and it was actually with Paying, and it was Paying and me. We were called Paying Cha at that time. And also at that time, it was our sister Gaoyua and a relative of ours. They both were the ones who started out as Gomunkatsu back in '99. And so we danced separately. However, yes, that's how it really started. And excuse me. And so after that, we still danced, but didn't perform until we came together in 2002. In 2002, or it was 2001. Yeah, 2001 was when us three sisters, Go ULP and I, we began dancing as Gomhonka too. Started to perform at our hometown New Year, which is in Oshkosh, and so that's where us three sisters came out as Gomhonka too, for the very first time as sisters. Yep, and I mean that's really how it started. And then our very first dance competition was at the Labor Day Festival, which used to be held in Green Bay, and the dance competitions were not held at the festival at that time. We were among the the group of dance teams that participated in the very first dance competition that was held during Labor Day. Um, back that was held back at the Ice Arena in Neenah, Wisconsin. So yes, we went as Gomukutsu. That was the first time they had a dance competition, and our first competition as well. We placed second. There were there was at least 10 dance teams though. Yes, and so
There
that
was
was a
16.
oh yeah,
Yeah.
there were 16, and we were one of the groups that had the fewest dance members, but we managed to place second at
Yeah.
that time too. So yeah, that was our very first dance competition. We got second, and we continued to compete then and there on at other competitions in Wisconsin. We eventually went to California too. Other than that, we just competed in Wisconsin, California. That was pretty much it, and we
Oh, we
competed.
did go to Minnesota
Oh
too.
yes, yes. Oh yes,
Yeah.
we did go to Minnesota one year.
Yeah.
Yes, so we competed in
Mhm.
all 3 states there, and competed, and then our very last competition was in 2010, and then my sisters and I we continued to just perform, for recreational events. We performed up until 2017 until my oldest sister got married, and then that's where our team officially retired. So, yeah, I was expecting to go on a few more years, but yeah, I mean,
Mhm.
yeah, life goes on too. And so after my oldest sister got married, then yeah, that's when our team officially retired and we stopped performing. So, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, so in a nutshell, yep, that is
Hi,
kind of
mom.
okay, yeah, that is kind of our history a little bit there. And so yep, so let's kind of dive into some of the details. Some of the things that I want to share is kind of what went on behind the scenes with dancing 10 or even 15 plus years ago. Um, so obviously, from my perspective, when we started in 1999 and then 2001, and then we really started getting active with competitions. Was it in 2002? Right? Is that correct?
Oh no, it was 2003.
2003? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was when competitions started. Yep. And then, like Kalia said, we first started at the Ice Arena. And one thing that I want to point out, obviously at that time, the standards for dancing were not what they are now. We never really got a chance to, I don't think we ever got a chance to like look at our scores and look at how the rubrics used to be or anything like that. But yeah, it was definitely different than how it is now. The skill level was not that high yet at the time. So yeah, I mean it was definitely very, very different. Another thing that I also want to point out is even like costumes. At the time, you didn't see a whole lot of bling like how you see now. There's definitely a lot more creativity with that now. Another thing too that I would definitely point out that's very, very different from back then versus now is I remember being at the ice arena, and even though it was like usually it wouldn't end until like 2 in the morning.
Mm-hmm.
That's when the event would end, and you would still see a full crowd in the audience at 2 in the morning. It was very, very exciting during that time. A lot of people came to watch, and a lot of people stayed. I don't know how it is, in everyone else's perspective, but usually for me, when I go to New Year's or events today, a lot of people leave. Many people don't stay for the results, like how it used to be. And I don't know if maybe that's a change with the generation, but I definitely see that difference, where not everybody stays, which
Yeah.
unfortunately it is kind of sad. But yeah, back in the day, you would have a full crowd. until the very, very end, and that's what made it so exciting. And Kalia, I don't know if you would agree with me on that, but
Yeah.
I definitely missed that a lot.
Hey
So
girl, do you want to, girl, on your Facebook post, do you want to edit it so you can include in the post that we're having a discussion about dancing or something like
yeah,
that?
I can do that. Yep.
Let's chat about dance like that. Yeah, just
Okay.
because there's nothing there, or else they're not
Yeah,
gonna
yeah.
have a clue
Okay.
what we're talking about. So yeah. But while you do that,
Mhm.
I'm also thinking back to the
Mhm.
dance competition videos that I posted back in Fresno, Buto, back in '89 in Fresno, and they took shots of the audience too at that time too, and you can see there weren't as many New Year's around like that at that time, if I'm correct, and it was like it was those events that the like Hmong people, the Hmong looked like they really looked forward to, and I think Tolushan that you really depended on those events for people to, come together. If not during like Kenoke how then it's the New Year's that you would come together, right? But I think like you said, with how how like the generation has changed, I think the way how we entertain ourselves is much different now. Like if you think about it, some people they would rather. I noticed that some people would rather like have some kind of social gathering and drink at somebody's house or go to the bars rather than go to a New Year or go to a festival nowadays. Because like that, from what I see, like you like bars weren't like in drinking wasn't like really up there. But then I think nowadays with how we interact with each other and how we have fun in our daily lives, it's different now like that, and that's why I think that has an impact on the lower attendance at festivals and New Year's. But I think that the reason why at least these New Year's and festivals are still around is mainly because of like the competitions and the sport aspect too. I mean, let's not forget about the sports too, because it was these New Year's and festivals that we dancers and singers, I will include, we depend on these events. That way we can, put our talents out there like that. It's not the same. I will be honest. It's not the same when you go to an event that's not a festival or New Year where a lot of people are going to come. It's just not the same. It doesn't give you the same adrenaline like that as compared to an actual Hmong festival and an actual Hmong New Year event like that. And I think that's at least still is what is keeping these Hmong events alive. Is you really have to cater towards like that, because that without these competitions, without the sports, like nobody's going to be there. It's just going to be vendors and people who just want to go, and support the vendors like that. So I think that's how I think it's the dance competition arena has really changed in that aspect where not as many people come nowadays. Like it's you have to rely on dance supporters, which also Sato Shiner like that to just come. That's why you get like a big audience like that.
Mhm. Yep. Yeah, that's definitely true. Keeping the festival and the New Year's going is definitely something big. I know, back in the day it used to not be like that. The competition originally was not a part of the New Year or the festival. Um, um but that's definitely changed. It's rare that you would go to a New Year nowadays that does not have a dance competition. Um, so yeah, it's definitely become a very, very big part of the New Year and the festival. And like I was saying with the audience, looking at the difference between back then and now. Um, you realize that as soon as they announce the winners for dance, and once that's over with, then the audience clears up. Everybody leaves after that, and it's pretty empty after that. And so dance has become a very, very important component um, to the New Year's and to the festivals. It brings in a lot of people. In my opinion, I think it brings in next to the sports. The sports is definitely the biggest thing, but I feel that the dance is the next thing in line that brings in the most people. And so it's very important that we keep it going. So kind of moving on from here, when we were competing, I a lot of things that I personally remember. I know we kind of went. Let's see, Clean. Help me if I forget.
Yeah.
We let's see. We competed at the Ice Arena, which was Green Bay. We had competed in Wausau. We competed in Sheboygan. Um, where else did we compete?
So yes. So at the ice arena, yep, Wassa, Nina, Green Bay. We competed at Green Bay,
Mhm.
and you mentioned Sheboygan too, right?
Mhm. Yep.
Yes. So it was and Oshkosh. Don't forget.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Yep.
Oshkosh. So that's technically 6 cities that we competed in Wisconsin, from what I remember,
Mhm.
and um, and then we competed in Minneapolis, Minnesota, when the Honey New Year used to be held back at the Metrodome. So, yep, Minnesota, yeah, Minneapolis, Minnesota, and Fresno. So you count, then we competed in 8 different cities, and some of those
Mhm.
cities we did compete at multiple times too, like that.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, don't
Um.
forget. Oh, I almost forgot Milwaukee. So
Yes.
that's
Yep.
9. Actually, that's
Mhm.
9. Yep,
Mhm.
Milwaukee.
Yeah. I lost count how many places we went to compete. One thing that um for us when we were first starting, and I've mentioned this before, but for those of you who don't know, when Gamunkatsu started competing, we did very well. Just about everywhere we went, at least in our first year, um, we we had placed somewhere, and we were very proud. Sometimes it was third, sometimes it was second, sometimes it was first. However, as dancing became more popular, the style started to change. It began to become a lot more competitive. Um, and unfortunately, at the time, um, I don't know how, Kalia, you felt, or how about Hangzhou felt, or, how mom felt about it. But for me, it was very hard to change styles. We were very traditional. We wanted to have a very nice, clean outfit. The way we dance, we wanted our moves to match exactly what the song was saying. And we were very, very picky. We wanted to be very, how do you say it? Not exactly traditional, but
We
very,
wanted,
yes.
yes, we
Yes.
tried to take that.
Yes, and unfortunately, that strategy no longer working. We made the mistake of sticking with that strategy, even though it was not working. I don't know why we did that exactly, but for me, change was just hard. I didn't want to change. I felt like Gomonkutsu had a certain style, and we wanted to stick to that style, and we wanted to win that style. You know, um, so yeah, and it was definitely hard. I remember at the time, we realized that it was also getting to the point where people were coming in bigger groups. They had like 8, 9, 10 people, and we only had 3 at the time, and we were like, okay, we should probably recruit people. But unfortunately, it it wasn't. yeah, it wasn't exactly, how do I say it? Change was just hard. That's just all I'm gonna say. We at one point we were going to recruit people, but then we felt like if we recruited people, then it was like we were still the base of everything. You know, we came up with all the choreography, we designed all the outfits, and the only thing that the new members would have to do would be to learn the dance. um However, it was a tough decision to make, just because in the end, if you were to go somewhere to compete and you win, everybody gets the same thing. And we just didn't feel that it was, at that time, that it was fair to do that. And so we moved on without recruiting for a while, which unfortunately it did hurt us as well. And see, Kali, I'm trying to tag you, but for some reason it's okay.
At least in the Facebook post.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay, there we go.
there you go.
Okay.
Yeah, and I'll add it. So
Yep.
okay, there you go.
Hmm.
Okay, that's perfect.
Okay.
Yeah, but I know we didn't start recruiting until it was 2008 when, or actually no, not 2008. Sorry, it was what year? 2000,
2006.
2006. Yeah,
Yep.
2006. Yep. Yeah, 2006.
Hmm. And at the time, even when we did recruit, we recruited and then we went from 3 to 6 people.
Hmm.
And we were performing for a while, and then we dropped down to 5, and we competed once with 5, and then we dropped down to 4, competed once with 4,
Hmm.
and then we left the competition, you know, for
We
a
left.
while.
Yeah, we left. Yeah, we left
Mhm.
until 2000.
2008, I think.
Yeah, 2008 was when we
Yep.
came with
Mhm.
this. When we performed with 7 people, and then we went down
Mhm.
to 6, and
Mhm.
then 2008 was when we started competing with six
Mhm.
of us, and
Mhm.
then we went up to 8 the following year, and that was the
Mhm.
most that we had.
Mhm. Yep. And then that's when we started to kind of build up our rapport again.
Hmm.
Um, we started to change our style a little. You know, it was getting up there. I felt very confident. You know, once we had 8 people, and our style had changed. We made a lot of changes, a lot of improvements. And me personally, I started to feel more confident. It was definitely still very competitive at the time. From 2008 to about 2009, I would say that was a very big time for
Yes.
dancing.
Hmm.
Yep, very
Yeah.
competitive, very big.
Hmm.
But you know, everyone did very well that year, and I can say that for sure because um, every single competition, it was somebody different who was placing first. It wasn't one team that placed first all the way through. It was like a rotation of teams. So that's when you know that everybody is equally good. It's just a matter of who has the higher score in terms of points at the end of the day. So yeah, it was huge during that time, and I'm happy that we got a chance to be a part of it. Once 2009 was over, starting in 2010, it started to slow down. You know, a lot of teams stopped after 2009. We were going to continue in 2010, but unfortunately, we stopped halfway through 2010. So, but yeah, the next couple of years, it really, really started to slow down from there. And so it was kind of sad to kind of see the dance dying down a little bit at the time. Um, if you were lucky, you would have 5 teams in a competition.
Yeah, I remember. I remember. Um, Back in 2007 was, yeah, back in 2007, when the stage was brought underneath the under the tent for the very first time in Oshkosh. And
Yep.
that year, and it was a small stage. It was a small stage, 30 teams, I remember. And I remember the following year after that, yeah, like the teams by, if not by half, then by 2/3, like that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and so I think the next thing that we can definitely talk about is just the decrease in teams from 2007 to 2008, because that was a big drop. Like,
Mm-hmm.
and we can try to talk about our opinions about like the rationale behind the number of teams, like, you know, lessening for competition.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. With the large decrease in teams, um one thing I will say is unfortunately back then, and a lot of you dancers, I'm sure you guys have heard from other dancers during our generation specifically, that the sportsmanship was not like how it is now. um there was a lot of rivalry back in the day. There was a lot of loyalty, I will say that. If you were in a dance group, chances are that was the only dance group you were in. Dancers nowadays have maybe two, three different dance teams connected to them. But from our generation, it's rare that you would find a dancer who was in more than one dance group. At least for most of us. Okay. So there was a lot of loyalty. If you were in that dance group, you stuck to that group. That was it. I don't know how the other dancers feel, but for me, even if I, stopped dancing, if I want to go dance with someone else, it was like I was being disloyal to my group, especially if I cared about them, you know. So unless you didn't like them or something, then that's a different story. But yeah, there was a lot of loyalty. You would see teams with the same dancers for years and years and years. That's how strong the bond was. However, there was a lot of rivalry, that came along with
Yeah,
that. Yep.
the sportsmanship was, it wasn't the same back then. Like it's like, yeah, it's like konyo pano na che. It's like konyo koso na. Like there wasn't really that, sportsmanship where, I mean, you might get the word like, oh, great job, like that. That she, it wasn't. It's not like nowadays where you see a much, you know, much better rapport within dance teams, at least on the competition stage or even off
Mhm,
stage too, like that. Like you don't see like dance teams like taking pictures with each other like that during competition time. It's like
mhm,
nowadays it's like different. Unless if like como like itu sister from another team, ko like not like that, but like the rapport and the sportsmanship was so much different like that. It's like everybody was just kind of like in their own bubble in their own space back then. So I
mhm,
will say that sportsmanship has gotten a lot better drastically, which is a good thing. But kind of going back to about like the decrease in teams, like I mean, I think during our generation, like we went on for so many years with dancing like that. Like that was like I think the one thing that a lot of us relied on to keep ourselves company, and it was so fun back then too, and it was very competitive like that. And I think about from Labor Day 2007 to 2008, like there was a bit of a drastic drop in teams, but although there was still like although if we had like 15, 17 teams like that was still like considered a lot. That yeah, that's still like considered a lot back then. But I think it really comes down to, you know, Shay, are you serious about it? Because it takes a lot of it's a lot of commitment, like financially, emotionally, and physically. It's a lot of commitment on you. And I think that if you were really serious about it and you really wanted to commit to it, then you were one of those teams that you would last for, if you were lucky, like at least a few years like that and such. So like I know that back in 2007 when there was 30 teams at Labor Day, and like I noticed that a lot of the teams are like that, so you can kind of tell like if they're newbies like that. So and it's like then, or if it's like even some dance teams I know have the mindset that, oh yeah, if they feel like they're not like if they feel like their game is not up there, then there's really no purpose because you sacrifice a lot like for one competition and for like 2 to 3 routines that you have to invest in a lot too. So unless if yeah, and I noticed that even maybe your teams a lot of that were the ones that kind of tend to continue on and on like that.
Mhm. Mhm. Yep. Another thing that I realized too is, it kind of reminded me of the very beginning, back in 2003 when we had the first competition, at Green Bay. And, you had 16 teams. And again, you could tell the ones who were starting versus the ones who had been doing it for a while.
Mhm.
And then after that year, the following year, there was a big decrease in teams. I don't think we even had 10. We probably had
No,
half
no,
of that.
we had like
And
nine or
yeah,
10.
we
Yeah.
and we and then in 2007 to 2008, we kind of saw the same thing there. Um, and we kind of applied Charles Darwin's theory of evolution to it, where you call it the survival of the fittest. So if you were one of those teams that was really committed and you could afford to do all of it, win or lose, you were still there. But the other teams that said no, there's no point. They just kind of let it go, and that's kind of how what we used to apply to what was going on in the dance world. And I think that has changed for today, in the current generation right now. I do find that people, whether it's something temporary or something long term, it's planned well in advance. I know that a lot of people who want to do something one time end up doing it longer. Some people who want to do something long, unfortunately, it gets cut short sometimes too. But it seems to be more planned now. And another thing that I do want to talk about too is um, funding. I know a lot of teams nowadays are looking for ways to fundraise to help their dance team to be able to support, and cover expenses and things like that. Back in the day, one thing I will say is that we, at least in our team, we never had to do any kind of fundraising. Yeah, we didn't. So seeing that today, it's not a shock or a surprise. But back in the day, I mean, I don't know how you felt, Kalia, but I never even once thought about doing an agro fundraiser.
No, because
So,
Toma, I know like that kind of fundraising was more for like, Hmong based clubs like that for school.
mhm.
But back then, like, to like, what year did Facebook even come out? I think Facebook came out when I was in high school.
Yeah, I don't know the exact year, but yeah,
Yeah.
it wasn't until later. Yep. So yeah, I mean, I never even once thought about doing a fundraiser. The immediate thing that came to my mind was that if you wanted to dance, then your parents would pay for everything, which was kind of what happened. Even when it was just the three of us, in Gomokutsu, our mom had paid for everything. So she bought everything, she sold everything, she did everything. When we had a bigger team, I think us as the sisters, we did contribute a little bit too. We were mainly the core that contributed the most because we were the base kind of. However, every other dancer, it was their parents that covered all of their expenses for them too. So yeah, we never did any kind of a fundraiser or anything
Yeah.
like that.
Yeah, back then,
Yeah.
yeah, back then if you were a dance team, like you needed the parental support, like
Mhm.
to be in a dance team like that. Like, which I think nowadays where you find a number of teams where they are more like self-sufficient like that, then props to you guys, because back then, like, you couldn't survive, like a team couldn't survive without parental support of any
Mhm.
sort, like that. Whether if it's providing financially, or bright, or like getting somebody to sew your outfits for you, like you couldn't do it on your own. You needed parental or some kind of outside support. But back then, like, I know when Facebook wasn't really out there yet during our time, and you do just outside like that. Oh, like everything was just basically out of your pockets like that. There was never the thought of like fundraising or asking for, donations to help fund for your team for like expenses such as like lodging, transportation, for outfits, and to pay like registration fees and all that. And so, like, but nowadays, like, social media has been used as like a medium to you know fun for dance teams too. And I think that's something that we should talk about next, girl, is you know like the way how, like, I guess, like, financially in a dance team, why there's more outreach nowadays to have to for teams to have to reach out to help fund them, so you know their team can be sufficient. Because I think, because back then we did everything out of our own hands and everything was more simplistic. But nowadays, like, you see more teams having to reach out through social media to help fund them, financially, like that. Because it's a lot of it's a big financial investment to you know create a team like that.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I definitely agree. One thing that I will say regarding funding for dancing nowadays, I know back in the day, we had experiences with dancers who unfortunately did not have the parental support they needed. We did go through that. We had those who supported it, all the way. We had those who didn't support it at all. We had those who only supported it halfway. And that made it very, very difficult. Especially at that time where you you agro fundraiser, you munya, or you ask
Mhm.
people to donate or sponsor your team. You never would have even thought of anything like that. Um, so today, what I am seeing is that unfortunately, there are still a lot of parents who don't support dancing as much as the public loves it, for entertainment.
Mhm.
When it falls back to the parents, it's not always something that they're willing to pour money into. And it's not a complete surprise for me, mainly because one thing, having worked in the nonprofit area for several years now, and Kalia, I think you can vouch for this too,
Yeah.
is even if you're part of a nonprofit and you were to apply for sponsorship or donation, and you were to write a grant or a proposal to a potential donor, explaining who you are, what you need the money for, and how it's going to benefit you, the question that they are always going to ask is, what's in it for me?
Yeah. I think
Yeah.
I think that's an issue too, because yeah, I think maybe from parents' perspective, focus on school is a big priority. But
Mhm.
I think what parents look for nowadays is like, what's in it for them? Like, how is this going to benefit me? But I
Mhm.
don't, but I think that's something that a lot of parents fail to see, is the long term effects, the long term impacts that this is going to have on your child. And I think we were fortunate that mom and dad were really supportive of our passions, because they found this as a way to, I mean, this helped us. I mean, for me personally, like, I say this a lot on Facebook, that and I tell people this a lot, is that dancing is not just a passion, but it's very therapeutic for me too. And that's something that I often rely on, you know, during times of stress. It's something that it kept me busy, especially during our childhood. Like it kept me busy. And that way, you teach you like like not saying that dancing is the only way to keep yourself out of trouble, but for me, it kept me out of trouble. It kept me busy, and of course, and like what everybody says, it helps you connect to your cultural roots. It does, and and also we didn't just stick to just strictly Hmong dancing. We did Chinese, we did Thai, we did Lao as well. And so I think it was able to make me learn and understand about the different kinds of styles and the cultures out there, and be able to celebrate that diversity too, at least from my perspective too. So I feel that when parents don't see the long-term benefits to having their child join a dance team, and they feel like it doesn't benefit them, then that I think that's a I think that's one of the big impacts on why there tends to be lack of support from parents. And nowadays you see more teams that are being more self-sufficient now, and they depend on themselves now too. So Ma has a question. What are some of
Mm-hmm.
your favorite OG teams? Oh yes, OG teams. um OG teams, some of my favorite ones. Gomong Sumner. They are a team from Milwaukee, very successful in placing in dance competitions. Gomong Sumner, yes. What other teams did I enjoy? Oh, I'm trying to think back.
You can say your list first, and I'll say mine.
I'm trying to think too. And oh yeah, Ma, yeah, Gamutashi. I still remember when there was still Monk Channel going on in Oshkosh, and we tuned into it every night, and
Yeah.
they always showed your dance team. They always showed your dance team performing, and so yeah, I remember your guys' Thai outfit that was in that your Lao outfit that was in purple, and you guys were dancing to Delta Ijan. I still remember. And I have that song too, actually. And
Yep.
I still remember some of your moves. Like I that was the one dance that I remembered the most. Yeah, so yeah, you guys were a favorite too back then. Yeah. And
Yep.
I'm actually happy that we got to share the stage with you guys during Labor Day back in 2005 at Labor Day in Green Bay when it used to be there. And we got to compete with you guys too. So that was an honor, actually. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Um, what are the teams besides Gumutasha and Gomung Sanda? Oh, I'm trying to think. Trying to think. Go Nuku. We're talking about the older generation. Go Nuku. Yes.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Go Nuku. Yep. They were really up there. Like and the only team to have placed 3 times consecutively first place at Labor Day for 3 years in a row. So they've been a really successful team. So yeah, I liked Gonoku. I also liked who else did I like? I liked Gomong USA. Yeah, Gomong USA, Sheng's team when they were still younger. Yep. Gomong USA. I remember they always stuck around with 9 people, like for I don't know how many years, but they stuck with 9 people for quite a long time too. So I remember they were so little, but yeah, they were so talented. I remember I loved Gomong USA's their Bollywood dances. Their Bollywood dances were probably one of my most favorites. So Gomong USA is at the top of my list too. Who else? I'm trying to think. Um, I feel like I'm trying to jog my memory here. I'm trying to like go in order during Labor Day. Like, yeah, I'm trying. I'm trying. Um, Minnesota Sunshine. They're still around today after all these years. The first time we competed with them was back in 2000,
Three or
2003.
2004? Yeah,
Yeah,
2003.
2003. Yeah,
Yep.
2003 or 2004. Yeah, Minnesota Sunshine was still around at that time too. So yeah, I remember the first time I saw them. That was when like acrobatics in Minnesota was so big, and they were the one of the first teams that they were the first team that I saw that did acrobatics and dancing too. So I remember I was always so memorized too. So Minnesota Sunshine, yes,
Mhm.
they were around back then too. Yeah.
Mhm.
Who else?
You want me to say a few?
Yeah, yeah. I'm trying to think.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I
Yeah.
listed like four teams already.
Okay. A lot of the
Hi Shang.
yeah. Hi Shang. Um, Gomo Asia was huge back then.
Oh yeah, Go More Asia. Yes, can't
Yep.
forget about them. Yeah.
Yep. Taiki Lai was also a very, very competitive team back in the day.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then we sang Gomo Samnu, Gomo USA, very big back then too. Gomo Liji,
Oh yes.
was also a favorite,
Yes. They used to be
back in
called.
the day.
Yeah, they used to be called Na Asian Gay. I remember. That's
Yes,
the
they
first time
were
they
not
came.
ancient day
Yeah.
before they became Gomo Liji.
Yep. I remember.
Yeah, and so, oh, let's see, am I forgetting anybody?
Oh, I just got another team. The first time we
Uh-huh.
competed, Chinu. Remember them?
Oh, yes, Gomo
Yeah.
Chinu.
Yeah.
Yes,
Uh huh.
yes.
Yeah, Chinu. And then they eventually went to Gomu Chinu. And yeah.
Mm-hmm.
We competed with them 3 times.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
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 Shang was saying, all these dance names are now making me feel extra old.
Dang
Yeah, we
girl.
feel old, but hey, we're
Oh
still
yeah.
here.
Yeah, we're
So
still here.
we're
Yes.
still here. We haven't gone anywhere.
No.
So
Yeah. I mean,
yeah.
I think the most important thing is as a veteran dancer, I mean,
Mm-hmm.
you know, your dance team's not there anymore, but I think just finding ways to support the dance community is I think what's most important too. So and I
Mm-hmm.
think we're all doing that right now too. So
Mm-hmm.
and I think yeah, and I think that's a good thing. That's something good that we're doing as veteran dancers too. And it's something that I know we're you really just can't let go of because
Mm-hmm.
that's been like a big part of your life growing up too. And so I think as veteran dancers as we are now, then we're finding ways to support the dance community in any way that we can too, whether if it's
Mm-hmm.
being a dance instructor or if it's being whether if you're being a dance judge or you're coordinating a competition like that or you're even donating financially to dance teams. I think those are just some of the many ways how you can continue to support the dancing community too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that actually is a great transition right back into our topic about funding.
Mm-hmm.
Um, a huge thing that regarding funding, and we talked a little bit about the history between how it was back in the day versus how it is now, where you didn't see a whole lot of that fundraising. A lot of the parents, took money out of their own pockets to pay for things, and I will say, today you see a lot more team fundraising to
Mm-hmm.
do it. I have heard some coaches, say that the reason why they don't go to certain dance competitions is it's not because they don't have time to go or they can't go or that they don't want to go. It's because they don't have the funding to afford to go.
Mm-hmm.
And it's always very sad to hear that because even when we give a prize that's $2,000, unfortunately that itself is not even enough to cover all the expenses. And
Yeah.
I've heard dance coaches tell me that because I'm part of the Hmong American Center. We're also part of Hmong Service Center too, and we help run some of these competitions. They say, if that's something that the organization can think about, to raise the price so that it'll help these dancers. And unfortunately, we can only give so much too. I know that having worked with HSC and HAC, you see a lot of the behind the scenes work and how people have to find how the organization has to find money, and you need a certain amount to go to this, a certain amount to go to that. If you apply for grants, a lot of them are restricted, in which you can only use so much for one thing. And so even if you got like a $5,000 grant, you couldn't just take that and do whatever you wanted with it. There were restrictions. to that. And so that's something that a lot of people don't know about, unfortunately. And so it is very difficult. And oh yeah, Shang, when you guys did your agro fundraiser,
I mean, you met
profit was only $100 to $200. Yes.
Mhm.
So yeah, a lot of times you think about the amount of energy that you put into it and what you're getting out of it. Is it really worth it too? And it is very difficult. One thing that I do want to point out, having been so involved in the nonprofit sector for the last several years now, as a dance group, when I was teaching Taekwondo, I had taught them a couple years back. And when I was teaching them, they were a dance group under the Hmong American Center, Inc. So they were a group that was part of that nonprofit organization. So we were actually able to get funding for them by writing grants and things like that. And then they would get money that would go towards their group specifically, to cover for clothing and things like that. Um, and then the Hmong American Center was, because it was a program under them, they would cover for hotel costs and things like that, which actually helped a lot. But however, even with all of that, I still had to pour a lot of money out of my pocket to help, because again, there was only so much that they could give. There's only so much that we could get even from writing grants and looking for sponsors and donors. And so it really was a team effort. The dancers had to give, I had to give, the Home American Center had to give, donors gave, and it still wasn't enough in the end. You still have to pull money from all these other areas in order to make it work. Um, so being part of a nonprofit organization definitely has its advantage. Whereas when you are a nonprofit, people can give you money a little bit more easier, because every time you get money, you have to take that money and reinvest it. You can't just take it and use it for whatever you want.
Yeah.
That's how a nonprofit works. Whereas when you're not under a nonprofit, you're technically operating as a private entity. And when you're private, you can't, it's harder to ask for donors and for sponsorships, because if they give you money, they can't put any kind of restriction on it since you're private. So if you get money, you can do whatever you want with it, which unfortunately does make it a little bit harder to find money. That is something that a lot of people don't think about. I did not realize this until I became involved in the nonprofit sector, and I see a lot of teams where they're struggling to find money. And mainly it's because, when you look at the deep details of it, you are a private group. And so when you're private, there's not really like, how do I say it? There's not a way to reinvest. I mean, you will technically would be reinvesting what you get anyways, but because you're private, people can be less willing to give. There are still a lot of people who are willing to give because they know what Hmong dancers do and what we go through and what we need the money for. But for somebody out there who doesn't know, but may have a similar vision or a similar mission as you, they would probably be less likely to give as a result of that. And I think personally, I think that's why a lot of dance groups nowadays are struggling to find money. And so that's why they have to turn to doing fundraisers and things like that. And so um, one tip that I would give is, if you can, become part of a nonprofit, or, I don't know about the dance academies, if you guys, are nonprofit. I know you guys probably are. Usually when you're under a nonprofit, it's a little bit easier to be able to ask for funding and things like that. So just something to think about. Kali, I
Mhm.
don't know if you wanted to say anything in regards to that.
I mean, I
But
know we Ututa maybe told you about that already, so I don't want to repeat anything.
Mhm.
But I think like something that I've seen is, I think about how even like we veteran dancers, like, we start some veteran dancers, they start up like, teams, right? Like that and stuff. Like they create teams. Like nowadays you're seeing more teams coming out too, is particularly for the younger age, of course. And I'm just thinking like, I think something that you need to keep in mind when you are creating a dance team is, are you up for the kind of, do you have, how much are you willing to invest in the team like that? Because you're not always going to get the parental support or the funds like that. So you have to go in with a a set a prepared mindset, because like I
Mhm.
mentioned previously, it's a lot of investment, in creating a dance team, both physically, financially, emotionally, and physically too. And that's why I've noticed even in the past where, they team like có bỏ là perform show là có bỏ là compete show to compete now like that. And I think there are a lot of factors that play into that too, like that. And sometimes yeah, the có khi bắt tiền có ý ở trong sự ít thế là có rõ now like that. Like
Mhm.
it's a lot of work. It is. And I don't blame, those people for, stopping like that. It's a
Mhm.
lot of work.
Mhm.
But then
Mhm.
nowadays it's awesome that we're seeing more teams being created now like that. Like it did lessen at one point, I will be honest. Like it did lessen, but I think the fact that we're, at least like nowadays, like competitions are opening up for the law that you made and like that. And
Mhm.
so that way there's opportunities for choosing made to, work their way up into like placing like that too. And so I think with those kinds of opportunities now, I think that's why we're really growing within the dance teams that made now like that too. Well,
Mhm.
one thing they're
Mhm.
gonna want to do it too. So I think
Mhm.
there's been more what do you call it, there's been, I guess, more interest in dancing for the little girls like that. And I think it's a great stepping stone for them to work their way up like that.
Mhm. Yep.
Yep.
Yeah, so that's really really great. And I commend a lot of the organizations that were willing to create groups A and B, and even in Minnesota there's a group A, B, and C for the Hmong American New Year. And so yeah, it's great to be able to see that expansion from how it was back in the day to how it is now. Let's see. So Shane said, I agree in my experience how parents and dance teachers act toward dancers. If you cannot be a dance teacher, yes, you do have to be very, very patient. A lot of times I do wonder, like, I never taught a very, very big dance group. I think the closest thing that came to it was when Gomokutsu had 8 people. But then it was really a combination of me and Tanabeya sisters and our mom. Whereas nowadays you got one person teaching 10 girls, and so it's a very, very hard job. I mean, especially for other teams that have like 20 people. I don't know how you guys do it. I really don't know how you guys can handle that. A lot of times, like bé chỗ bé có coordinate tô á bé xong nó nè lo being the top and stress good. Yeah, it's like you have all these dance teams that you have to worry about too. But imagine if you were the mom or the coach who was watching over them, making sure that they had all their hair done, all their costumes and everything ready.
Hmm.
It can be very, very stressful. Um,
Yeah.
yeah. But one thing that I do want to say too, regarding the funding, and this is just from my perspective, um, but one thing I realized back in the day, when parents would usually cover for a lot of the expenses, just kind of like how from Gomokutsu, it was mainly our mom who covered for the expenses. And because she was, in a sense, funding the group, she actually had a bigger say in how we did things because she was the one pouring her money in to fund it.
Hmm.
And today, again, being in the nonprofit sector and knowing how grants and, sponsorships work, many times when a company would give you a sponsorship, and they will say, okay, this money, you can only use it for this. And then, once the event or whatever it is that you use it for is done, you have to write a report to them on how you use that money.
Mm-hmm.
So that way they can document exactly whether you used it correctly or if you didn't, and then that would then determine if they can give to you in the future. Um, so for a lot of people who struggle with funding, when people are funding you or they're sponsoring you, um question like how we said earlier, they're always going to ask, what's in it for me? Okay, that's a big question they're always going to ask. And then another thing too is, how is it, so yeah, how is it going to benefit them? um and oh my god, I just lost my train of thought. um it's the amount of control. So if you are giving somebody $1,000 and you have the control to tell them that they can only use it for this, this, and this. And I kind of look at it back in the day when, our parents, for example, our mom, would be the one paying for everything. She would say, okay, we're gonna do the costumes this way. We're gonna do the choreography this way. We can go to this competition, but we're not gonna go to this one. And the one thing that she has to back up everything that she's saying is, I'm the one who's paying for everything. And, when we were kids, that may have sounded ridiculous. I know sometimes, you disagree on things and say, well, I don't like it this way, I'd rather want it that way. However, I'm not the one who's paying for it. And so when somebody else is paying for it, unfortunately, they do have a bigger say in it. And for those who are not supporting, I don't think it's mainly because just because maybe they don't support dancing, but if they were to give something, then they want some kind of control in how their money is being used. And I know that nowadays, big dancers, we are very independent. Um, a lot of the choreography, the talent, actually comes from the dancers themselves.
Mm-hmm.
I do realize that now. They're teaching themselves. Coaches are veteran dancers who have many, many, many years of experience. It's rare that you will find a coach who doesn't have many, many years of dance experience, who's willing to do that herself. And I think that's a big difference between back in the day versus now too. Chances are, if it's someone who's very committed, it's because they were a veteran dancer. They know what the struggles are. They know what you have to do, what you have to put in order to make a dance group work. Um, and so it's kind of like, well, if I'm going to invest in it, then I have to have some kind of control.
Yeah.
And just speaking from the point of a dancer, because you have that talent, and you have that knowledge, it's kind of like, well, no, I want to be able to control, I want to be able to do the choreography the way I want it. I want to be able to design the outfit the way I want it. And unfortunately, if you want to be the one in control of all of that, then you have to find your own means of funding in order to make it work.
Mm-hmm.
It's hard to have somebody else out there give you a pile of cash, and they can say do whatever you want with it, and then you can do whatever you want with it. So it's very difficult to find that nowadays. That's just something that I want to put out there, because Kalia, we have been through it ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
When we retired in 2010, do you want to share a little bit about how we kind of ventured off by ourselves at the time? Because that was when Mom stepped down as our coach. Do you remember? Yeah.
We didn't come back out. We came back out with just the three of us, and we just started performing mainly for our hometown New Year, and starting in 2012. Yeah, and so I remember we were still really into Chinese dancing, and so I remember my mom said that if we wanted to continue, then basically we're on our own, because my mom has poured a lot into our dance team for so many years, and so maybe it was time to hand over the hat like to us and for us to be to do it our way like that and stuff.
Mhm.
And so after my mom stepped out, then Payang stepped into sew the outfits and stuff, and then I stepped into finding songs and choreographing the routines like that. So for quite a few years in a row, like we yeah. So for a few years, then we were on our own, and we just performed like that for
Mhm.
events and stuff like that. But we did a lot of Chinese dancing, I will say, because Chinese routines was what I was best at personally, like that. But the thing is that when you're a small team with only 3 people, like you gotta find means to like still look good, even though you don't have like the the many dancers in your team. So the one strategy that we did was we utilized props like that because we felt that it wasn't the same. It doesn't give the same kind of effect like that if you just only have 3 dancers and you're dancing to a routine without props like that. It just we needed something to fill in like the missing pieces like that because we didn't have the many dancers like we used to have before. It was just back to us 3 sisters now. So that's why we were being strategic that we were gonna. That's why I had for a few years you guys a lot of you guys saw us do a lot of Chinese dancing like from 2012 to 2016. Yeah, around there. Yeah, we did more Chinese dancing because, and we danced with props for every single of those routines because, like I said, we wanted to be strategic. Like, how can you make yourselves look good despite that you only have 3 dancers, and that was our strategy: dancing to a style that was catchy, and dancing with props like that. Like the props could fill in like that. That could bring in that catchy and oomph effect that we think that our team needed because it was just the 3 of us. So that I mean, so that's just basically how it was like that when we came back out after we officially retired from dance competitions at the time, and basically the hat was just handed over from my mom to us too, and so that's where we just became self sufficient, but it was only just for performance. We didn't compete like that.
Mhm. Yeah.
Yeah. What was I
Um.
going to say? Oh yeah, I was talking about Chinese dancing, and we touched base a little bit about this about how the style of dancing has changed. Like I remember, like back then when we, at least for us, when we first started competing, like it was there was more Thai and Bollywood dancing going on. Not as much with Hmong dancing, I will be honest. Like it it was hard to score very well with a Hmong routine back then. Like Tao Yu like that, yes. But I mean, if you were lucky, you were able to do justice to a Hmong routine, then that would help you get high scores. But back then, it was like Bollywood and Thai dancing were so big. The first, I don't know how
Yep.
many years, the first many years of the competition, at least in the competition arena, at least at Labor Day, because that was
Mhm.
the one competition where we competed the most. And it wasn't until like what year was it? It wasn't until 2008 and after for a few years that Chinese dancing started to get up there for the Wisconsin teams like that. And so Chinese dancing got up there for a couple years in 2008 and up like that, and then but then backtracking to Hmong dancing, like it was after it wasn't until 2000. I'm trying to think. 2006, I will say. Yeah, I think it was 2006 or 2007 where um, competition coordinators back then noticed that there was very little Hmong dancing like that. It was just mainly everything else besides Hmong, and that's where competitions, at least in Wisconsin, in Wisconsin, started requiring a Hmong round where you had to do either at least one dance, or there were some competitions where you had to were do strictly Hmong like that. Like that's how Hmong dancing was finally brought back in through that requirement because a lot of dance teams back then stuck to Thai and Bollywood especially like that because it was just what was more popular. And what was especially, called thinning like the Jota Hainan like that was Thai and Bollywood especially like that. And so there was just a lot of loss with Hmong routines back then. And that was how it was until they made it a requirement like that for, if not for one round or maybe even for an entire competition to have Hmong routines. And that's where Hmong dancing started coming back in like that. Yep. So if it weren't for that, I mean, who knows what would have happened with Hmong dancing, but I still remember that. And I remember back then too. It was all about the hip shaking and the upbeat songs like that. Yeah. It
Yeah.
was that, got the crowd wild on their feet and it got you high
Yep.
like that. It was like all the hip shaking and, the upbeat songs.
Mhm.
But
Mhm.
then in 2009 and up, then like you started noticing that, basically whatever the winners did, then you kind of learned from them and you kind of started following them. That was how it was back then in the days too. You saw a winning team that, was doing a lot of fast songs and hip shaking like that, then like not all teams, but like most teams would follow them, like like that. Like they felt that,
Mhm.
okay, if I do
Yep.
that, then I'm gonna win like that. And
Mhm.
then once it got back to like, whether if it was like a team that did more slow tempo songs and they ended up placing, and then you're wondering, how did they win? Like you're trying to figure out like, okay, what did they do to, like, what strategies did
Yep.
they use to win? And that's where 2009 and after that was where teams kind of started to stray away from, not as many teams did fast songs like that. And it seemed like it was more of like the graceful dancing that was
Mhm.
what got you to win
Mhm.
like that. It was more of
Yep.
that. And then and I remember during those years when it was more graceful dancing, like I remember for me, I didn't see at that time to be more competitive than now. Like I don't know, it wasn't as like catchy and as what's the word I'm looking for? Like as anticipating like that because there weren't that many competitive teams at the time anymore.
Mhm.
But and I think it wasn't until Dijo, I would say at least 2016 and up, at least in Wisconsin, I've noticed where the style has changed a lot. The dancing is more between Hmong and Thai now. We notice not
Mhm.
Chinese because I think the reason why Chinese really dropped out was I think I think people started to get bored of it. You tend to see like the same thing over and over with Chinese dancing like that. And I know back then when the sportsmanship wasn't really there was a lot of pointing fingers back then about, questioning what was originality and what was considered copying like that. And I know that's like that could be like, a debate we could have like all day long about that. But I know
Mhm.
back then there was a lot of finger pointing like that about, originality and what was copying and stuff. So yes, and Chinese routines were a lot harder like that. Like you could only think of so many you can only think of so much with Chinese routines, and they were harder routines, I will be honest, like to choreograph. And so it I guess, Wisconsin actually, you know swayed away from Chinese dancing, and it was just mainly back to mainly Hmong and Thai dancing like that. Even Bollywood was out of the picture for so many years actually like that because they're much harder routines, and they do tend to be more tiring too. Like, yeah,
Yes, they
yeah,
are.
they tend to be very tiring. Yeah, Bollywood, my goodness, like, whoo,
Uh-huh.
and oh my gosh, and all that. Like, it was very tiring, and so yeah, and so Chinese dancing and especially Bollywood, like they were like just put off to the side for so many years like that. And now it's like it's only like once in a long time where you might see somebody, bring in Bollywood or Chinese like that. It's been a long time. So I think it really comes down to sticking to what's easier to teach
Mhm.
and to
Yep.
choreograph, but also at the same time, um, I think about how there's always that question about, like I've seen this a lot. Like I remember one time I posted on social media about the dance competition in Hani, and I was watching it live last year, and how there were a lot of comments about why dance teams weren't, a lot of dance teams were dancing to Hmong routines like that. Like there wasn't much about like Thai dancing, but then other than
Mhm.
that, like that having the belief that we should stick to just Hmong dancing. And I'll repeat myself again that if we stuck to Hmong dancing, I will tell you, like we wouldn't be we like the evolution of dancing in the Hmong dancing community, we wouldn't be where we are at if we didn't step out of a comfort zone and take that opportunity to explore other styles and other cultural, other like cultural genres that are out there too. And I think that's what makes the Hmong dancing community, I think, very unique and very, I would say, talented and creative. Yeah, our
Mm-hmm.
creativity goes beyond just Hmong dancing. Like you can create like a superb Hmong routine, but we can take it a step even further and do that with other like different types of genres too, whether if it's Thai dancing or even Chinese dancing and whatnot. And I think as we witness that there's a lot of the younger generation that are really starting to lose their cultural roots like that and don't find as much value in being Hmong anymore. I think that I think it's important to stick to your Hmong roots too, but I think for me personally, like just because you don't dance to a Hmong routine, it doesn't necessarily make you value your culture any less like that. At least, not all the time too, but for me personally, that's just my thinking because I think that dancing different types of genres, it gives you an opportunity, like I previous mentioned, to you know step out of your comfort zone and explore and value and celebrate the cultural diversity that we have in this world here too. So that was like my response to a lot of those derogatory comments towards dance teams who chose not to use Hmong routines during competitions at that time, like that too. And like I said, some Hmong routines are strong, but when it comes to competition, you gotta use your strongest cards, even if it comes down to not using a Hmong routine. You you do what it takes to get those to you do what it takes to get those points like that. And sometimes a Hmong routine might not be as strong as your Thai routine, or it could be vice versa. It just really depends on like that and your execution. Because at the end of the day, it really comes down to point value that determines who wins and who doesn't win. But yeah, about trends, of course. Like I said, I think that we Wisconsin teams we tend to stick to Hmong and Thai because it's a little bit easier. It is easier. I feel like you don't have to pour in as much energy. It's not as tiring compared to like Chinese and Bollywood dancing like that. But yeah, I think the different trends of dancing throughout the years has really changed like that. So yeah, it really has. Yeah, it has changed a lot like throughout the years, honestly. So yeah.
Yep. So yeah, that's definitely something that has differed in the history of dancing from our time to the time now. Um, Unfortunately, I think there is always going to be that sensitivity that it has to be Hmong. That kind of applies everywhere from what I've seen. And one thing that I would just say to the Hmong community as a whole is to stay open minded about
Mm-hmm.
that. I've seen a lot of the elders push back on it, and they will say, why are you dressed in this? You should be dressed in a Hmong outfit because you're Hmong. You know, why are you doing this type of dance? You're Hmong. You should be doing Hmong. Um, I've even heard a lot of the elders, say for the Hmong organizations that the board members should only be Hmong people. That's how far they've taken it, and it's kind of like there doesn't really seem to be a very open mind um,
Mm-hmm.
to allow anything non-Hmong to come into that.
Yeah.
So I mean, even now with us speaking more in English than Hmong, there might be some you do it has a Hmong dance what you want Hmong, so and unfortunately because like with Hmong, you can only do so much. You can only do
Mm-hmm.
so much with it, and yeah, like you said, having that ability to explore was a big part. And so that kind of brings me back to us in 2010 when we had retired from competing, and we ventured off on our own. And again, mom had said that if we wanted to, continue, then we would have to, do it on our own. And it was a struggle. I remember it very, very well, um, because at the time, no, none of us knew how to sew. We knew how to dance. We knew how to do that, but we did not know how to sew. I did not really know how to. I didn't know how to use a sewing machine at the time. Um, and I think what we were hoping was that we wanted to continue, we wanted to stay active, and we were hoping that even if mom wasn't teaching us anymore, she would still help with that. But when she said no, she wasn't, that got me to thinking, oh, if she's not going to do it, then we're not going to. I mean, who wants to continue dancing and continue wearing the same outfits as many years ago? Eventually you want something new, you want something fresh. Wearing the same outfit, even 3 4 times already, you get kind of bored.
Mm-hmm.
And you want something new, you want something different. And that's when I just made the decision one day. I was like, okay, I'm just gonna teach myself how to do this. There's YouTube now. People put out tutorials and stuff like that, for you to learn how to do stuff. It can't be that hard, and so I taught myself how to do it. I wasn't the best, but hey, I just took it and I went to town with it. I graduated from college at the time. I was working full time. I could afford to go and buy fabric. I could afford to buy stuff and, create something that I thought was really, really cool. And because again, going back to what I said much earlier, when you are the one investing in it, you want it to be the best it can be. You value it that much more if you are the one investing your own money into it, your own time into it, your effort into it. So I valued it that much, and as many of you can see, we went all out. I don't know if that is even enough to describe, what it was, but I felt like we definitely went all out with what we could do, and we did, the best that we could, with what we had at the time. With us even venturing into the modern dance world, where we
Yeah,
were
I
no
think
longer in the traditional dance, but we even went into the modern dance world. Yeah. Hmm.
yeah, I mean, I think Monk fashion has. I think
Oh, Claire, were you gonna say something?
like oh, I was just gonna say yeah, like dancing outfits, like the expectation has risen for like dancing outfits. I will say too, like that, and I think about. I mean, I don't know. I'm just thinking back to like back then, like you were lucky if you could find somebody to sew your clothes to your outfits too. Like I know, like we sewed like we had to sew like certain parts of our outfits. Like we didn't do like the fabric parts, but then we like sewed on like the sequins and the beads and stuff like that. But then it wasn't like nowadays where có mua có một bỏ cho là lỗ mong ấy mua không giờ nó like that ya ta lo
Hmm.
nữ chỉ trong like that like cái one the kote konya son the if not con die tu ning lo so your entire dance team like that was how it was back then like you
Hmm.
got lucky they got lucky then you would just like you would be able to purchase like the same hat from like a vendor or like the same like skirt like that or that
Hmm.
kind of stuff like that. But then other than that, like it was really like by hand a lot back in the
Hmm.
days. But nowadays, like you have like so many of the like the monk clothing shops like that where you can like buy outfits like that and stuff like that. Like back then it wasn't like that, and even nowadays you don't really see people like sell fabric for sewing anymore. It's mainly
Hmm.
like you spend like between like I don't know 70 $100 and plus on
Hmm.
a long clothing shop, mainly online like that to
Hmm.
outfits like that,
Hmm.
stuff like that. So it I think it's really changed from in terms of like our sources of like how we make our outfits and stuff. Like it's really changed from from our
Hmm.
from our time to nowadays because we didn't have those same resources back then too. And nowadays you don't really see much like the hand sewn anymore like that, especially with monk outfits like that. Like I've been seeing more people like, buy it online like that, and they
Mm-hmm.
might like, just alter it some way by adding like maybe like some kind of design on there like that. But I think nowadays, like, people have those kinds of resources now where we didn't really have those back then too. And it was just, like I said, it was mainly done by hand and on your own.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Mhm.
But yeah, that has definitely changed, especially with technology and
Mhm.
with
Yep,
social
technology.
media.
Hmm.
Why do it when you can just have someone else do it for you? It
Hmm.
saves you time. But yeah, it's definitely changed, and I personally feel that for me, when we ventured off on our own and we kind of took control there. I will say that it was a very rewarding experience. And like I said, when you are the one investing, your hard-earned money, your time, your effort into it, you value it that much more. And that's something that I can honestly say with in all my years of dancing, I never valued it that much until I actually had to put in my own time and money and effort into making it happen. That's when you really value it more. And so I don't want the dancers in the current generation to feel discouraged. When you go and you ask people if they're willing to donate or sponsor your dance group, even if they say no to you, don't feel discouraged. Okay. Because you're going to get rejections. I completely understand that. Having been in the nonprofit sector, you're gonna get rejections. You're gonna get some people will help you, some people won't. As important as you make your mission, your objective to be, there are going to be people who say yes to you, and there are going to be people who say no, and that's okay. Um, but just remember that no matter how much money somebody else gives you, in the end, you still have to be the one to make it work.
Hmm.
Surround yourself with people who care and people who support you. I will say, in my perspective in this current generation, I personally feel that the dancers support each other more than anybody outside of that supporting dancers overall. I feel like when there's something going on in a dance group, it's the other dance groups that are supporting them the most.
Hmm.
That's what I see. I see dance groups going to other dance groups fundraisers. Whether they are part of them or not part of them, they are going to their fundraiser to support them. Um, so I mean, even I myself, as a dance coach, back when I was still teaching taekwondo, when Jia Sheng went to Fresno, we had given them a donation to go to Fresno. You see a lot of that teamwork, that helping each other. That's how far dance groups have come now, and it really hits close to home. If I could go back to our dancing days, I think that things would have been a lot better had that been the case. But it's never too late to do that. Even us nowadays, especially now that we're coordinating a lot, the only ones that we had to turn to when we needed a judge, were the dancers back in the day. And it was because although there was a lot of rivalry, I look back at it now, maybe it wasn't so much rivalry between the dancers themselves, but it was the fans of the dancers. So again, there was a lot of loyalty back in the day, so that did cause a lot of tension and a lot of rivalry. But we were still able to come out of it in the end and retain really good relationships with dancers.
Hmm.
I can't tell you how many dancers we are now very close with. Every time we reach out to them for help, they never hesitate and they come and help us.
Yeah.
And that's something that I want the current generation to definitely keep in mind as well,
Yeah.
because you guys are next. Once we
Yeah.
are done, uh, at some point we will no longer be the ones coordinating. It's going to be you guys. And I feel that if it's not you guys, it's not going to be anybody else. Because the next generation is now looking up to this current generation to keep
Yeah.
it going for them. Yep.
Yeah, because just think about it, like, lần nu nó chỉ cho cho hello nó chỉ like the dancers now, like
Mhm.
the current dancers now like that. So even as veteran dancers, like you know, you know, we're taking on like, like hosting and coordinating these dance competitions, like they're going to be around as long as, our young dancers are around too, because once our time is done, which is sad.
Mhm.
Yeah, I mean, once our time is done, then it's gonna be new people who's gonna take over too, like that.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
yeah, and honestly, it's just gonna. I mean, nobody's gonna really help support it too. The most besides us dancers like that, because even we veteran dancers, we end up getting asked to go judge for
Mhm.
dance and singing competitions, and sometimes pageant competitions too, like
Mhm.
that. So I mean, your time will come up at some point, and it'll be handed over. And I just think that nobody else supports the dance community best than the dancers themselves too.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Yep. Mhm. Yeah. When it's something that you personally are connected to, nobody is going to value it more than you. That's definitely something that I do want to point out. I'm not saying it's getting harder and harder to find judges these days.
yeah.
Yes.
I think that's
It,
something. You know what? I'm glad that you brought that up, Ma, because that could be like something else that we can discuss definitely. Like I
mhm.
know we've been talking for an hour and a half, but I honestly think we could like go all night long talking. But
Yeah.
yeah, it is harder to find judges because I mean, as you see, like like it's great that you see like more teams coming out now, but you see that it's mainly all veteran dancers that are,
Yep.
or the recent like dancers that are not dancing. Dance teams are not dancing more. They're teaching new teams,
Mhm.
and it's we're all connected. Like everybody pretty much knows everybody. So I think
Mhm.
that's just one of the biggest like obstacles as I mean as a competition coordinator is finding judges too, of course, because you know everybody, like I said, everybody knows everybody now like that. And I know that's often brought up to question by even some parents too of dance teams, that you're worried that somebody might show some kind of bias. But the thing is that but the thing is that how do you really see that though, unless if like if it's like some kind of relationship, like it's like I'm a judge but my sister's competing, then yes, there's something like completely wrong with that. But I think you know I think when people who have been around in the competition arena long enough, and they have plus the expertise and the experience of coordinating a competition, then they will understand it's not as easy as you think when it comes to the judging panel like that. Like you have to be very crucial, and I've brought this up too in the past too, where people question of like the expertise of and the background knowledge that these judges have. It's so hard to find judges who have a dancing expertise but have no connection whatsoever with dancers like that. It's
Mhm.
very difficult. It's like finding a needle in a haystack because
Mhm.
basically the judge will go in talk what's the unite. They all come from the same dancing community. Big also not like that. So
Yep. Mhm.
it's pretty much like almost not feasible to find somebody who doesn't have those connections but also has the expertise too. But I think what
Mhm.
people need to understand is that, like, again, it's not easy. And plus, I think it's good to have a balance of judges like that. So even whether, and it doesn't always have to come within their differences in expertise in dancing, but maybe somebody who's more neutral, or someone who's more of a, whether if it's like a lenient, with someone who's more lenient under scoring, to someone who's more neutral, to someone who's a little bit more harsh, like that.
Mhm.
I think it's good to have like a balance like that, so you have some neutral minded judges like that. I mean, honestly, I think about like even like, mainstream pageants like that. Like not all those judges have pageant experience. Okay, like I'm surprised that people, don't question about their expertise in pageantry, but yet we question it about it in, the dancing community too. Because when I watch Miss Universe, like, probably one person on that, uh, you know, pageant judging panel, is like a previous like, pageant winner or something like that. And then the
Mhm.
others, like, they're just like, they're like either like an actor or they're like a business person like that, and they, they're brought in to judge like that.
Mhm.
So I'm thinking, and I certainly don't, and I think it's, it'll take people a while to understand that, it's not an easy process finding people who know about dancing but don't have any sort of connection with, dance teams like that. So I think
Mhm.
once they put themselves in your shoes, they'll realize how hard it is. I mean, I think it honestly sometimes doesn't even matter. If, they're not in
Mhm.
your shoes, then they won't fully understand,
Mhm.
like, why competition coordinators make, crucial decisions
Mhm.
like that.
Yep. Yeah, and Ma just said, Joa and I consult with each other all the time. Yes,
Mm-hmm.
we even as coordinators, you only have each other
Yep.
to
Mm-hmm.
consult with. And I make this joke all the time, but it's actually something quite serious too. When a lot of people go around to some of the major tournaments, the major New Year's, you tend to see a lot of the same people
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
coordinating. So you'll find us at Milwaukee and Oshkosh, and Wausau. It's because we just go and we help each other. We're like a little alliance, almost. That's kind of what I refer to
Mm-hmm.
us as. We're like a little alliance where we just help. Once it gets to their event, then we go and help them, and then once it's ours, they come and help us. So
Yeah.
we support each other and we build on each other's
Mm-hmm.
ideas and things like that. And so yeah, we even for us, we really only have each other to
Yeah.
turn to. And
Yeah.
again, when it comes to something like dancing, nobody's going to value it as much as a dancer
Mm-hmm.
themselves.
Yeah.
Um, One thing that I do also want to point out, I know for a lot of veteran dancers, even in the past generations, from me and Kalia's generation, it is very hard to let go. You never want to stop teaching, just because it gives you so many great experiences, so many great memories. And if you can still do it, you want to keep doing it. However, there is going to come a time where, unfortunately, you do have to let it go. And I know I've had conversations with other veteran dancers, and at some point you do have to let it go. When I stopped teaching, it was very difficult. However, it did open up other opportunities for me. Even if you are not teaching, you're not dancing, you can still be connected to it in one way, shape, or form. Whether it's coordinating, being a judge. I know I've seen a lot of the online competitions now,
Oh
where
yeah.
you can submit a video and they'll give you scholarship money or something like that. I know a lot of dancers have started doing that too, which is awesome.
Mm-hmm.
That's something that is still very new to the dance community, but I think it's a big help for those who need the funding. And it's a lot of the veteran dancers who are making that happen. Um, for me, a lot of you may already know, but I was going to launch the first Hmong dance workshop for the Hmong Heritage Month conference that would have happened this April, but unfortunately we are postponing it due to COVID-19. And so that will be happening next year. on April 24th. So I hope that a lot of you guys are still looking forward to that. Um, and so yeah, it's and again, you may not be a dancer, you may not be teaching, but you can still help in so many ways. And I look at like the dance workshop, and when I reach out to all my panelists and everyone, all the dancers, for their feedback with it. And the one thing that I heard a lot was, we're so happy that for the first time, we're able to do a workshop for Hmong dancers. Because again, nobody's going to value it as much as a Hmong dancer would. So only you can make something like that happen. And maybe, one of these days, this is a big dream. I don't know if I'm going to be able to make it happen. And even if I don't, I hope somebody else will. I hope that maybe one day we'll be able to have a big awards event where we can give out, really nice awards, plaques, trophies to, similar to like how Maine does it for the Milwaukee New Year dance, where you have like a dancer of the year, a coach of the year, best sportsmanship, and what she started there is awesome. And I want to be able to grow that into something even bigger, where we can have like a really nice banquet just for Hmong dancers to be able to recognize people for all their accomplishments. So it's not really all about winning, in a competition, but at the end of the year, maybe if you were a new dance group, you could be the rookie dance group of the year, something like that, so that's a vision that I have. I hope to see it someday in the future. Even if I can't make it happen, I hope somebody else can. And so again, moving the Hmong dance community forward. And these are opportunities that we can definitely make. You can make, a dream become a reality if you are willing to fight for it. But just remember, nobody is going to do it because they don't value it as much as a Hmong dancer will. So as a Hmong dancer, no one's going to value it more than you can. Just remember that. Yep.
Mhm.
Oh, yeah, I know, Ming. I'm really, really sad too that we can't do the Hmong Heritage Conference. But again, everyone's safety comes first. Everyone's health and safety comes first, and so we are postponing that to next year. And so far, everybody is still on board to make it happen next year. So yeah, looking forward to that. So I know we have been talking for a while, but Kalia, do you have any last or any other topics that you think is important to address?
Mm,
I mean, we could go on. I mean, I know we could go on all day, but I
I
don't want
know.
to.
Something
Yeah.
I know that you brought previously was, about score sheets and stuff. I know we didn't really get to. Yeah, I know we didn't get to. No, really look at that stuff because it was oftentimes kept confidential back in the days, like that, which made
Mhm.
competitions back then a bit. It brought a lot of skepticism, like that and stuff like that. But I remember back at Labor Day, I still remember Labor Day was the only one that I remember that it was only 4 categories that we were judged in: scale
Mhm.
1 to 10, non-decimal system. It was music, costume, style, and overall performance. I still remember like that.
Mhm.
Yeah. But other like I don't really remember about other competitions like that. Like I don't like I know we got like a glimpse at our scores like that, but I know that back then like it was kind of kept confidential like that. But nowadays I'm just glad that it's kind of put out in the open like that because we dancers, at least if not other teams, then we dancers we deserve and need to see our scores so we can see what areas we can improve and all that too. So
Mhm.
yeah, and I think about how dancing was just back in the days too. I don't know if it's any much different than today, but I think today, like, I think we are more, at least from what we do, like, it's a bit more specific like that. And what we look at too. And I think about judging categories, besides like the typical like the outfit and the music, but I think about, synchronization and choreography like that. Cause back then it was just kind of like overall like that. But nowadays I think we tend to break, judging categories up like that. And we have like, and I think looking from like a dancer's perspective like that, like, what do you think, what do we prioritize as really important to be judged on? And I know something that I know has been brought up to question, at least from what I've seen, like I guess the YouTube comments, is level of difficulty like that is something that is really judged, at least within Hmong dance competitions. And I don't think I've seen such a category like that in any Hmong dance competition that I've seen like that. But
Mhm.
I think that's something that we can discuss on, because the thing is, level of difficulty, like there's really no standard, I guess, to Hmong dancing. I will say like Hmong dancing is not standardized. And I'm thinking about, you know, I think something that people brought up, like, okay, well, this team won, but yet their choreography was so simple like that. Whereas if it was, um, oh, okay, all right, yeah. So yeah, thanks, Mom, for bringing that up. Yeah, level of difficulty. Yeah, and so I don't remember if that was on there when I judged the year before. I don't remember, but yeah, I know that that's a category that I know that is not really included like that. But I know like some people from outside, I know they question about how that if there's a winning team, but yet their dance was so simple, like anybody could have done that kind of routine. Whereas this dance team probably didn't win or didn't place. They have like a much higher level of difficulty, but they lacked in other areas such as synchronization, or you know, or in other aspects, or even like in terms of like their outfit like that. So, and I'm thinking, how like how would you, like, sometimes what is difficult to one person, I guess, looks different to another. Like that, like
Mhm.
what might look simple to me might look more like a high level of difficulty to somebody else like that. But
Mhm.
I think because there's really no way to, I guess, define what's considered difficult, because at the same time it's like, I think it really, the thing is that there's a lot of diversity. There's a lot of diverse dances at Hmong dance competitions that it's kind of hard to, I don't know, I guess, measure that. Because the thing is that I guess it would make sense to do that if everybody stuck to like one genre for this round, or stuck
Mhm.
to one type of style for this round, then I guess it would be easier. But I don't know. I'm just thinking like how whenever I watch like gymnastics like that, like
Mhm.
like the judges already know like your difficulty score already, because they know your routines in advance already. So it's like, it's fair in gymnastics that you have just one score, like that's like your starting score, they call it. That's your D score, like your level of difficulty score. Because one, lực tức bốc hay thì có yếu tố like that, that's going to contribute to your level of difficulty score like that. And so, and I think, I don't know, like it could, I mean, I guess maybe that's a reason why it's not really as, maybe it's not really incorporated as like a dancing category, at least for a lot of the ones that we've seen, that level of difficulty is not really measured, because I guess it could look different from one person to another like that. I don't know,
Mhm.
but I don't know, what are your thoughts about that?
So I think it really depends on the coordinator, whether they want to have that as one of the score, as one of on the rubric or not. Um if you don't have it, I think it's okay. If you do, I think it's okay as well.
Mm-hmm.
And to answer your question where you said that um what is difficult for one person may not be difficult for another person, so how do you balance between that? Well, I think that's why you have multiple judges.
Mm-hmm.
So again, I mean, it doesn't even have to be difficulty. When you look at choreography even, or the outfit. What may look good to one judge may not look very good to another.
Yeah, you can say
So
that.
I think it applies across the board, and that's
Hmm.
why you don't have just one or two judges. You have,
Yeah.
five. I mean, minimum
Hmm.
three, but usually four or five. The more
Yeah.
judges you have, I forgot exactly what they term it as, but I think they say like the more you have like in the pool in the sample, the bigger your sample, then the more variance there is, and then that puts you closer to accuracy because you have a bigger sample size.
Hmm.
So I kind of look at judging the same way, and so I think that whether you have it on there or not, I think is okay. And again, it's the variance between the judges that can kind of balance that out.
Hmm. Yeah.
I know one thing that I've always kind of thought about, and this was even back in the day when we were still dancing. In Mika Lena Tola Judge, usually they would take out the highest and the lowest score
Hmm. Yeah.
to balance it out.
Yeah, to
And
balance. Yeah, I think to
sometimes,
balance and prevent like any sort of bias from what
yeah,
I
to
remember.
prevent bias. That
Yeah.
that's what they do. They take out the highest score and the lowest score to prevent
Mhm.
bias, or not to prevent it, but to minimize it,
Minimize
if
it.
I
Yeah,
if I may
minimize
say.
it. Yeah.
And then they just keep the middle scores. They go to balance na,
Yeah.
and yeah, high na we can certainly do that too. It's just that we haven't been doing that.
Yeah,
And
everybody's not. Yeah, because I think
yeah.
we for the competition in at least with Hmong competitions, then
Hmm.
we just take into everybody's scores into
Yep.
consideration. We just add it
Hmm.
all. I think because we're so
Hmm.
used to that system, it would be
Hmm.
very difficult to change it. But at the end of the day, then it's really up to the competition coordinator's choice like that.
Hmm.
But
Yep.
I mean, I think it would probably receive a lot of backlash if that happened like that. Yeah, I
Hmm.
don't know, because I think change is just something really difficult to overcome, even if it is for the better. But I think, I mean, honestly, I think we've been fine, at least with, just like accounting like all the scores, unless if like you notice that, I guess if like one judge is like, if there's like a big like disparity within like maybe one team versus the other 10 teams like that, then, you will need to take like those, you will need to like kind of follow your gut like that, like what to do about it like that in those kinds of
Hmm.
cases.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's always tough. I mean, we've been in situations where we've had to, experience that, whether or
Hmm.
not we want to drop someone's score, or, if we should even consider the system of taking out the highest and the lowest score, you
Yeah.
know. And I think within that, there's gonna be some fear
Hmm.
that it
Yep.
is going to hurt, and that maybe if that wasn't the system, then it would help. And so I know that in the competition realm, everybody wants to go in there, with the best kind of system where it's giving everyone an equal chance at winning.
Yeah.
And so I maybe that's something for the future, if that ever does happen. But yeah, for now, I mean, I don't know where it's gonna go from here. Again, it's up to
Yeah.
the
I mean,
coordinators
I
to
mean, how
decide
much?
that.
Yeah, like how much? I'm just thinking, like, how much can you really, like, change like the competition field? Like,
Hmm.
I don't know how do you make it better like that? Like, I
Hmm.
think we stuck around like with kind of like the same things like for so many years, just because I guess there's I guess there just hasn't been like an issue about it. I guess like that. I don't know,
Hmm.
but I think we're fine where we are at right now with dance competition nowadays like that. But I mean, I'm not sure how you could, really take it a step further like that. But I think when it comes down to like scores and judges and any potential bias, I mean, you just gotta trust your judges like that, and even competitors they gotta trust their judges. They gotta trust the judges too like that. I
Hmm.
mean, you can't really. I don't know. Can you really pinpoint, any, if this judge will be biased or not? I mean, there's really no way to tell until like
Hmm.
after you get the score sheets like that.
Hmm. Yeah, and it is very, very difficult. And I just kind of think back to when we were competing, and I mean we've been through it ourselves, where I even remember, like at one point we were saying that, oh, maybe four out of the five judges gave us a really good score, but one judge gave us a very low score. And if we used that system where you take out the highest and the lowest score, it would have been more beneficial to us. If that was the case, but unfortunately it was not. And even to this day, it still isn't the case. Um, and so I think one thing again, and I'm gonna keep saying this, that everyone should have an open mind. Be open to change. Be open to, because without change you can never develop, and if you can't develop, you can't improve.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think anybody ever improves without making some kind of a change.
Yeah.
um and if it comes, maybe in the future, depending on who takes over, after we are done coordinating, um whoever takes over, if they choose to be that first one to make that step, to take that step and say, okay, we are going to use that kind of a system, or we're going to have a panel of judges who may not necessarily be all Hmong. I know that even in the pageant world, where you bring in non-Hmong judges, that does, again, that there is some sensitivity to that, and saying that it's a Hmong pageant, you should only have Hmong judges.
Well,
Um,
I think it really
yeah,
comes down
so.
to
Mhm,
what the judges are looking for too. Because the thing is that, for example, like for a pageant, if you're, um, I mean, if you're gonna be judging like the Hmong fluency, well, it would make sense to.
mhm,
I mean, not necessarily that if they're not Hmong that they can't, but they have to be able to understand
mhm,
the Hmong language like that. Like,
mhm,
because
yep,
fluency is one of the things that you tend to get judged
mhm,
on in pageantry, like that. So even if
mhm,
they're not Hmong, but they know how to, but they understand it, they speak it like that, then I think that qualifies them
mhm,
as a judge. But I mean, I mean, it really just comes down to, I think, what, you know, the score sheet, what the categories are too,
mhm,
like that. So that's just my thought on that.
yep. But yeah, I think, in order to answer your question, in order to move forward, in order to make things better, we have to change. We have to be open to change. Regardless of what that change may be, we do have to be open to that. Not every single change is good.
Hmm.
However, I think sometimes we get very, very comfortable
Yeah.
in our own little bubble. We And
Mhm.
again, this was the big mistake that we made. Back in our generation of dancing, where we had a certain style that we stuck to, and we
Yeah.
were so comfortable with it, and then
Yeah.
we
And it
kept
wasn't
going with
helping.
it, and we were not winning with it. And even
Yeah.
after we kept losing, I still didn't want to change. I was that stubborn about it. I'm just like, no, this is who we are. I'm not changing it. And I think that I kept having every little bit of hope I hung on to, that maybe one day we could still win. But we're just like, nope, we're not gonna win if we keep
I also
staying
think,
this way. So
but I
yeah.
will be honest. I mean, at one point, like we could do what winning teams did back then. But but the thing is that like that to dance, the kind of style that you feel that's going to get you to win. If you don't get the coach, if you don't have the body to do it like that, or you're not committed to doing, then you can't do it. Because the thing
Mhm,
is that, I mean, as a choreographer, when you're teaching, well, you gotta have a lot of patience, like that and stuff.
mhm,
But I think if everybody can't dance up to par equally with each other, then your team kind of breaks apart from there like that. Because if you've got like half the dancers who can, if you got half of the dancers who can do the choreography and that style, but the other half can't do it, then you can't do it like that
mhm,
unless but you have to really, push them really, really hard like that
Mhm.
too. So
Mhm.
yeah, I think that was also like a setback too that we experienced back then too,
Mhm.
where not
But yeah.
everybody, where not
Mhm.
everybody was able to
Yeah.
amp up to the
Yeah.
level that we wanted them to be at.
Mhm.
So
Yep.
yeah.
Mhm. Yeah,
Mhm.
but I mean, again, the big question is how are we going to move forward, and how are we going to do better? And really, the only way to make that happen is to change. Um, and I think for a lot of people, including myself, we get stuck in our own little bubble, and we get so comfortable with that. And a lot of times we say, well, this is what we've always been doing, and it's worked, and so we don't need to change it. And there's that saying where if it's not broken, why fix it, right? um but you can never grow, and you can never learn or see anything else unless you change. And this applies to dancing across the board, and that goes back to even what I was saying earlier, where a lot of people, they love dancing so much, they either want to continue dancing or they want to teach, and be involved with it directly. But if you don't make that decision to one day let it go, you are never going to be able to open yourself up to other opportunities. And
Yeah.
so, like for me, had I not let it go, I never would have been able to I never would have been able to be a part of uh starting the first Hmong dance workshop. So that was something great, that I got to be a part of, and I feel very, very happy, and I feel very proud about that. So opportunities like that come about. And even like for us, when we let go of dancing and we started coordinating, I'm sure it's a tough job, but it's very rewarding as well.
Yeah. I mean, I
So
really,
yeah.
yeah, honestly, I find it really, yeah, I actually really enjoy, help co-coordinating and,
Hmm.
even I have like late night discussions with Gujro too about, you
Hmm.
know, the actually like that, or to
Hmm.
like, change things, whether if it's like the score sheets or even advice on like finding
Hmm.
judges and stuff like that. I mean, like, because I'm down here in Gojo, then yeah, we have a lot of those discussions too, like that and stuff like that. So, what was I going to say? I lost my train of thought. But yeah, I mean, I find that the work that we're doing right now with hosting the competitions during Memorial and Labor Day, like I find it really rewarding and enjoyable because, I mean, yeah, yeah, 我个人呢 then 个太多时候我是呢，也得个去年我得好了呢 then you're not gonna put like 110% into it.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Yep.
you gotta like your job. You gotta like and enjoy your job
Hmm.
to like, I guess, really put your like full effort into it too. Like I'll be
Hmm.
honest.
Yep, yep. But again, don't be afraid to change.
Mm-hmm.
Be open-minded,
Yep.
because it's the only way you can improve. It's
Yeah.
the only way you can move forward and become something better. And again, not every change is for the better.
Yeah.
If something doesn't work out, it's okay. Um, and it's like, I forgot who said this, but um, somebody had a quote where they said that, um, every time you fail, it's not a mistake.
Mm-hmm.
You just succeed in finding one way that didn't work,
Mm-hmm.
and now you're one step closer to finding a way that will work.
Yeah.
So I forgot who said that, but that's really, really important to think about.
Yeah.
And looking at dancing in the last 2 decades, even, I've seen that, how things have changed, and how for us especially, it was like 180. We literally did a 180 from where we started to where we left off. And now we're on the completely opposite side of where we used to be. And seeing it from from both perspectives, both sides. Yeah, all I gotta say is it's been a very great, it's been a great journey, very rewarding experiences, great memories. And I really hope that the current generation will step up and continue this for future generations.
Yeah,
Because
I mean,
again, yeah,
no
we
one's
won't
gonna.
be
I
able
mean,
to
no
do it
one's gonna.
forever.
Yeah, no one's gonna keep the arts going besides we dancers
Mhm.
too. So,
Yep.
we
Yep.
gotta. Yeah, I mean, I think even dances before us have paved the way for us, and then now we've
Mhm.
paved the way for dancers nowadays too. So, that's gonna. It's like the hat's gonna keep getting passed on. But
Yep.
I mean, we got to do what we can to keep the dancing alive too. And I think it's still very much alive. Like that, I'll be honest, like that. And at least dancing will still be around for who knows how many years. But I think even dancers nowadays too, in the younger generation, I think they're doing a pretty good job at keeping it alive too. So
Yep.
yeah.
And it's time for. I mean, this has already been started, but for the next generation to lead. Um, because one thing I noticed, even when I was teaching, I realized that my skills unfortunately are not really fit for this generation anymore. And the only ones who can really keep up with the generation are the ones in that generation.
Yeah.
You do need new people to have new ideas and really keep things
Hmm.
going. One
Yeah.
person can only have so many ideas, but
Yeah.
for all of us who are
You're
no
gonna re everybody
longer
yeah,
directly
everybody
in
reaches their
there,
peak.
yeah,
Yeah.
we're just.
Yep, everybody reaches their peak
Mhm,
at some point like
yeah,
that. Unless of good
yeah,
thing,
and again, but
oh, nah,
even
then
though
you can keep
everyone
going
reaches
on
their
and
peak,
on.
yeah, yep,
Someone's gonna come up with
yeah. I mean,
something very
everyone's
new. I
got
mean, that's
something to
how.
contribute.
Yeah, yeah. I'm just
Yeah.
thinking about like, oh,
Mhm.
like I see like something like fantastic and superb that somebody like came up with. It was like, oh, it's like that's great. And then next year, it's like, oh, somebody brought something new like that. And so it's like teams are always bringing something new in every year, and it just we set the bar. I think that's the one thing that I just find the Hmong dancing community so unique and creative is that we're always someone's always setting the bar higher and higher like that, and even
Yep.
it gets
Yep.
even more competitive. You know what I mean? Like that. So yeah.
Okay.
All right.
Yeah.
We've been talking
But
for
you know
2 hours,
what?
so I
Yeah.
think that's a good way to
Yes, I
end
think
this
we'll probably
conversation.
wrap it up.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll probably wrap it up. But yeah, to all the dancers out there, to everyone watching, thank you. This was just something spontaneous
Yeah.
that we just decided to do on the spot. There was no
Mhm.
planning involved in this.
This is all
Um,
impromptu speaking right
yeah,
here.
and now that we know how to do this live with two people, that will definitely help us in the future. We would love to do more broadcasts like this, and we would love for a lot of more engagement. With everyone too, especially you dancers out there. So yeah, we want to be able to share our experiences with everyone, and we want to hear about you guys too. Yeah, I mean it's what we love to do. So hey, let's talk about it because we don't really get that opportunity to talk about
Mhm.
it. So yeah, all right. But yeah,
Right.
everyone, you guys, keep doing what you're doing. Again, keep setting that bar higher and higher every time. We always look forward to seeing what you guys have
Mhm.
in store for us. So
Yeah, we're always amazed. Yeah, we're always amazed at like the new ideas that are brought to the stage every single year too. So yeah. So keep dancing, keep inspiring, and yeah, you guys have we veteran dancers our support all the way. So
mm,
as long as you keep
yep,
dancing alive, then there's really nothing else more important than that.
yep. All right. Okay. But yeah, we will yeah, we've been talking for 2 hours, so we will end the broadcast here. Yeah, we hope to do more of these in the future, and maybe I can chat with some other dancers too. Talk about their experiences too. So that's something that I'm looking forward to doing. If you guys want to see more videos, definitely leave a comment below. Let me know. I would love to hear your feedback and your thoughts about it. So, all right. Okay.
All right then. Well,
Okay.
have a
All
good
right.
night.
Okay. Good night, everyone. Thank you.
All right.
Yeah. Thank you.
All right. Bye bye.